welcome to Shredded Cels episode 32. I am your host, Alex Schmitz, and with me here today is Matt Lund.
Meow.
And the returning co-host, Chase.
Howdy, howdy, howdy.
Yeah. So where have you been all this time, Chase? It's been the last time you were on was for the Sword Art Online podcast.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not quite sure, honestly. Apparently, I just messaged you like last week saying, "Hey, it's been a while since I've done this. Have you got opening?" You said, "Yeah, we're gonna do Steins Gate. Want to jump in?" It says, "Okay, sure." And went ahead and just saw the whole show, and bam, here I am. Ever since then, as for my life itself, classes, going up to the library, sitting down and just doing stuff. I pretty much watched the whole show while I was in the library. You know, stuff like that. Mostly.
All right.
Pretty sure Matt has a more interesting story with him.
I don't necessarily think so. I'm working on something for AVW, but other than that, not too much. I restarted. I got back on my One Piece train as far as Ace's Execution, the Whitebeard War arc. Pretty close to sort of maybe finishing that. I watched 3 episodes yesterday, and I was proud because I got out of my.
Even if you finish the Whitebeard War arc, you've still got 2 more pretty big arcs.
I know. I have
to go.
about 120 episodes. I was down to 100 episodes left to catch up, and then I've slacked off the last 20 weeks, and now I'm back 120 episodes back. So it's going to be that battle of catching up, and if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't,
hopefully by when we're all in the apartment next year, you'll be caught up, and you and
Maybe.
Mark can talk about it because he's always watching the new episodes.
I mean, I hope so, but we'll see. We'll see. I'm going to be busy with summer with internship and stuff. So,
Did you get an internship?
Well, that's been a difficulty. That's side conversation. That's not for the podcast, Alex.
I know that feeling. I've applied to a few too. Haven't heard back from any.
Yeah, you said a couple of days ago you wanted to see Homestuck.
I am going to give, for those who like Homestuck on this podcast, and some of the people we know who don't listen to this podcast but are on this podcast, I will be giving Homestuck a fair game shot this summer. Matt tries Homestuck, coming soon. It's as dangerous as me liking Moe. Oh, hey, the one title you did suggest me. I will continue watching that. I haven't yet.
Which one's that?
The depressing one. That's all.
Kotoro-san.
Yeah, it's.
Oh, I've seen the first episode of that.
It's so depressing, and I love it.
Yeah, man. Oh man, I want to see the rest of that show. It is, man.
Yeah,
I was fun. Fun fact: these are from the same people who got us Yuri Yuri.
I don't even know what that is.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure some of our viewers will know that show. So,
well, yeah, Kotoro-san is interesting. Because I've watched the whole thing now, and I did enjoy it. I will say, it after episode 4 or so, it does become more of a more typical, slice of life moe show. There's still some things that come in with her mind reading abilities and some
slice
darker
of life.
stuff.
Isn't there like a 3-episode arc involving like a robbery or something?
Yeah. There's a whole bit where there's this criminal that shows up later on. And that becomes a plot point near the end of the series. So you'll get to that.
So yeah, other than One Piece, watching that one episode, I've been watching more Magi at the J-Con Friday showings. Magi.
I think that's one I've seen on Hulu. Like they have recommended for you. Down
it's
the
pretty
bottom.
good so far. Would you agree, Chase? It sort of has a slow start because it's got to build the world.
Yeah, pretty much.
I like when the first arc when saving the slave girl and like when they're going in the tower with the evil guy, but then it goes to the weird country going to invade this village. I kind of tuned out sort of there, and then when they went to this nation, it got but it's recently picked up, and I really like it.
Second season, yeah.
Yeah, it does have a second season, and they've also decided to do a spin-off anime on Sinbad, which is one of the characters in there. So they're taking a character from the show and saying, "Oh, we're going to give him his entire own show now."
Huh.
It's almost as if like Zorro had his own show.
See, so wait, is Sinbad as in like the actual like Sinbad character, like from myth, or
The thing with Magi is it takes a lot of these characters where it's like, oh, these have myths behind them, but it's just like, well, let's just use this famous character name. And and the problem with Magi is like in the Japanese version, they don't say Magi, they call it Maggie.
that would get a little
Maggie.
annoying. Yeah.
Well, all I know is that the guy who had done shows like Sound of the Sky and Mount Cross Frontier wrote it, and so far the whole thing seems to have this like One Piece flavor, which like it involves like these bunch of renegades just going out on an adventure trying to reclaim their just basically going on an adventure that evolves beyond their powers and the power of friendship and stuff like that. Would you agree with that, Matt? Because I haven't really been paying attention to that show.
I mean, it sort of is. I mean, it's a Magi. I mean, it sort of is. I mean, it's about, obviously you can tell from the opening credits, these three characters are going to go on adventures and stuff. Now, it hasn't been that way sort of yet. They've just kind of been in the same places all at the same time, and it's worked out. But it has a good start. The only worry I have is that supposedly where the first season ends is close to the end of the manga. So the second season might be this like third season of Kenshin where it's just like, we're going to go on our own path and then have that train wreck.
So it's going to be like the Naruto fillers?
Oh, boy.
Maybe. We don't know.
Let's hope not.
We can hope not. But other than that, no, not watching a whole lot of anime.
Not lots of anime. Well, as for myself,
Every anime.
I rewatched Steins Gate. I watched it for the first time. I also I was rewatching some episodes of Toradora just because I don't know why exactly. I was reminiscing about older shows, as you'll see in my list. I watched some of the more poignant moments from some of those episodes. I watched a few episodes from the early episodes of Trigun because I have some of those on my iPod and love that show, obviously. And then just the other day, I rewatched almost the entirety of Madoka Magica from episode 3 to 12, which is essentially
that show.
Hey, it's my number 3 favorite show.
What are your other two again? I forget.
Cowboy Bebop at 2 and Brotherhood at 1.
Okay, yeah, that's fair.
Aren't you posting like Cube photos on your Facebook or something?
It's on my friend Kenny's Facebook.
Which has now gone over to the Tumblr now.
Yes, now it's on Tumblr. And actually, it's a surprising number of people like it and reblog it. So I think it's kind of fun. I just started doing it because way back when we did Fate Zero for the podcast and Kenny didn't finish it. So I started posting pictures of Ryder on his Facebook wall for every day until he finished the show. And eventually he did. And then I don't remember. He must have brought it up in some way, and I just got the idea of, let's post Cube pictures on his wall every day because he hates
And
Cube.
now you're up to like day 44.
Yep. And my goal now, at first I was thinking of doing it for a month, but it was so much fun that now I'm going to try to do it for a full year. If I get to 356, I will stop. That's the goal.
Have you told Kenny about this?
Oh, no. I discussed it with him. He's terrified, but it's going to happen whether he likes it or not.
Oh, boy.
Madoka Magica, just rewatching it just reinforced how, like, as a filmmaker, and an aspiring screenwriter and stuff, I wish I could write a show that is as well written and story driven as Madoka Magica is. Are you not as big of a fan?
Well, the thing with Madoka is I've been kind of been a couple months ago. I kind of looked into like the production, how all that show came about, and I don't know. Every time I sit down and actually read on actually what happened behind the scenes as they make it, I don't know. I get the impression that it's, well, first of all, it seems to be much more writer based than it is say director based. Like in most anime, it's pretty much a case where the director, the head writer, and the
key animator,
key animator, stuff like that, usually just collaborate. And Madoka, it was pretty much the same thing. Everyone went ahead to collaborate with one another. But there seems to be this dominating writer's perspective on it, and it pretty much got to the point where it seems like the writer himself became much more involved in the production of the show. And basically, whenever people think about the show, they're going to think about him. And if you read the stories of what he's going through and his production schedule, I get the impression that he pretty much wrote the show with completely different intentions than people think the show actually represents.
I was reading about something. Apparently, before the show came out, like when the trailers came out, it was basically showing all the stuff from episodes 1 and 2, nothing of the darker stuff it gets to later. And he was on like Twitter calling it a fun magical girl show. So basically they were purposely deceiving the audience so that when episode 3 rolls around and you get your heart crushed, it's that much more effective, and it works in that way.
There was also two other things that kind of made me pause and take notice. There was an interview we did for a magazine, and I wish I remember what it was. I think it was Otaku USA, but I don't remember. But someone brought up the question on, I don't remember the question, but it was more along the lines of saying, so is this going to be something like Sailor Moon? Is it going to be something, how is this influenced? And basically his answer was that it's going to be or at least the anime that he liked as a younger guy, was that he he was watching magical girl shows back in the 70s and 80s, and with those shows, while necessarily not being darker, but they generally had endings where, things got screwy. In fact, there's this one particular anime, which I can't remember the title right now, that apparently had and there was a sequel that kind of referred to this, that had this incredibly dark ending to it, where it was the main heroine dies, and I can't believe I mispronounced that word. But anyways. The main heroine dies, and then once that happened, everything just goes black and white, and she dies, goes to heaven or something, and bam, that's it. Episode's over. And apparently it's anime like that was a big influence on him. And there was also another story where apparently, how what's that character with the blue hair again?
Sayaka.
Yeah, Sayaka. Apparently what happened there was that the director himself, who also directed other Shaft shows like the whole...
I think he did Bakemonogatari.
Yeah, that guy. Apparently, that guy pretty much wanted to give that character a happy ending, but the writer himself says, just pretty much just trolled him and saying, no, let's go with this. I think this is a good ending. Let's just go with this. And once I hear that, I just have to go, wait. If he wants to go in the direction that the director himself doesn't agree with, something is up here.
I don't think so. Personally, I know the writer of the show is a guy named Gen Urobuchi, and I've watched a number of the things he's done. He also did Fate Zero and Psycho Pass, which are both shows I really like. And I think it might be, part of the reason why Madoka Magica is so good might be because he was more involved with the show than a writer usually is. Because if you look at a lot of anime that are more mediocre, I get the feeling the writer's just sort of there, to come up with a little story and send the characters on their way, and it's really the animation director, the animators, they're the ones really
some of them
driving the show.
Some of them are actually key animators for other shows, actually.
Right. So yeah, and I think I had heard I think maybe the voice actors for Sayaka or something was talking to Gen Urobuchi about wanting Sayaka to live, and eventually I think he sort of acquiesced because I won't spoil anything, but Sayaka does. It's a bittersweet sort of ending for Sayaka. It's not totally sad, but it's not happy either. By episode 12,
I'm worried if his background in writing visual novels have anything to do with this, and if it's he's intentionally doing this just so his writing style is different and it's therefore better, and I don't know if that necessarily is better, but it is something I've always pondered about whenever I read these things. And while I think Madoka is a great show, every time I hear people saying, "Oh, this is the next Evangelion" and stuff, that's where I have to take pause and go, "Wait a minute. The intentions for this show is completely different than what shows like Evangelion was trying to do."
Well, but Evangelion was a deconstruction of a genre, and Madoka is the same thing, just for different genres.
Well, I wouldn't necessarily call it a deconstruction. I kind of see it in a different perspective, but that's for another podcast.
Okay. Interesting discussion here on Shred Cells. Also, if you're listening to us for the first time, you'd be interested to hear that we are part of Tech Heads, which is part of ABW Productions.
We haven't done this part yet?
A media production organization here at Ohio University. Usually I do this before we start talking about the anime we've watched since last time, but this time we're doing a little bit differently.
Alex got off track. Blame Alex.
Well, it wasn't I got off track. It's just the podcast went in a different direction. I let it flow that way.
You let it flow that way?
Yeah, because it's a conversational podcast.
Conversationals? Really?
Uh-huh.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, didn't you hear this whole 5-minute Madoka tangent we went on a Steins Gate podcast?
Yeah.
We're conversational. It's a good thing.
Let's move to Steins Gate then, shall we?
Before we get to Steins Gate, Matt, remember we're going to talk about the news. There's been interesting
Is there
news
some news?
things. Mm-hmm. Indeed. This happened, I think it was about a week ago now. Cartoon Network put a bunch of their old classic shows on Netflix.
Oh, yeah.
It's something, I don't have Netflix, so it really doesn't affect me.
I
but
sort of have it because a friend gave it to me on my PS3, but I don't use it.
I'm just using my dad's Netflix, to be honest.
I see. Well, quick list of shows that they've got here. They've got Dexter's Lab, Adventure Time, Samurai Jack Foster's.
They're
Ed,
all
Ed,
the
and
first
Eddie.
seasons, though. It's not. It's just,
Really?
Yeah,
Just
it's,
first seasons?
it's not the whole. It's not the whole series. It's just first seasons.
They've also
now.
got Ben 10, Codename Kids Next Door, Cow and Chicken, Regular Show, Chowder, Johnny Bravo, The Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy, Courage, The Cowardly Dog, Powerpuff Girls.
They even have some Adult Swim titles like Boondocks and stuff like that on as well.
Cool. So that's cool. Like seeing the old classic Cartoon Network shows get some love because I love those shows. Next little piece of news. Currently, there's the new Dragon Ball Z movie. Apparently, it's called Dragon Ball Z: Battle of the Gods.
Oh, yeah.
Is now out in Japan, and apparently, it's grossed like a ridiculous amount of money.
Oh, yeah.
It says it's 683 million yen in its first weekend, and they've got a goal of it grossing 3 million within Japan alone. Not 3 million, sorry, 3 billion yen. I don't know exactly how much that translates to, but I was reading online that, for what its budget is, it's already made well beyond that, and it's only getting better as it goes. So apparently there's a lot of rumors that if this movie does really well, there could be a new Dragon Ball Z TV show.
Wait, where did you first hear this?
I don't know. I saw that's the thing. I couldn't find it confirmed anywhere, so I don't think it's not official. But a lot of people on there's this website, it was called SaiyanIsland.com, and some other places like on forums and things I was looking. A lot of people are talking about there being some sort of new Dragon Ball Z show. So, it's apparently a possibility. And I can see, if this DBZ movie does super well in Japan and makes tons of money, why wouldn't they make a new one if they think it'll make them money?
Yeah, it's so popular, Japanese schoolgirls are pretty much imitating Dragon Ball Z attacks.
Oh, really?
Really.
Oh yeah, I've seen those pictures. What are those called again?
I don't remember.
It
the
has a
titles.
name, yeah, but it's an internet meme where there's like this one Japanese girl and she's like, it looks like she's pushing the air, and then all the classmates are like in the middle of jumping back. It's pretty neat.
Oh, that's actually kind of cool.
So yeah, it's been.
Yeah. So I was reading someone's review of that movie, and it basically was saying that it was stupid in the way Dragon Ball is stupid, but for what it is, it's fun. It's got cool action, it's got funny moments, things like that. So it sounds like a good movie. So I'll have to try to find it.
I know it's longer than the usual Dragon Ball Z movies.
Well, yeah, I think there are all those Dragon Ball Z movies that came out while the TV show was on, and those are more like little spin-off things, and those I don't think ever got lots of focus. This one was obviously one they put a lot of time into.
Yeah, the creator himself was actively involved in it, apparently.
Oh, really? Mm-hmm. Well, that's good.
No.
Why is that bad?
No, it's not bad. It makes money for Toei, and it's good.
Yes. So, that gives them more money to do more with One Piece. So there you go. It's a good thing.
I'm still waiting for new Sailor Moon.
Yeah, I've heard something about there being a new Sailor Moon too.
There is. We're still waiting for it. We haven't heard anything since the initial announcement.
When was it initially announced?
Oh man, I don't remember the original date. I think it was wasn't early 2003. It was sometime in late 2002, 2012. 2012, yeah.
Okay, I was gonna say 2002. That's ancient then. 2012, huh? Well, we'll see if anything comes of that. That'd be kind of cool seeing new Sailor Moon and new DBZ. Both old shows revised in a new way. Could be interesting.
They're both done by Toei.
There you go. And then finally, I was setting this around beforehand, just as we were talking about Madoka Magica earlier. I believe about a week ago, there was a trailer released at some anime convention. It was released on the 30th. I have written down here, 30th of March. And we'd known about this third movie for a while now because they announced that they were doing 3 movies, and the first 2 came out, and they're basically those recap sort of movies where they just condense the TV show into a single movie.
We got a date for that now. Is it going to come out in the summer?
No, it's coming out. This new movie, the third movie, is an original story. It's coming out in the fall. I don't know exactly when, but it's coming out sometime in the fall. And they released this official trailer for it, and it's basically showing that it's set in the timeline after Madoka saves the universe, basically, but things aren't as all hunky dory as they might seem. So I won't spoil too much here, for people who haven't seen the TV show and all that. But point being, I saw it. It looks really good. I'm definitely going to be looking forward to seeing that when it eventually comes out. What did you think of it, Matt?
For what?
I'm going to have to put your laptop away, Matt.
Maybe, but we'll see.
Okay.
Are we talking about Steins Gate?
We were talking about the Madoka movie trailer.
I'm not a Madoka person. Wait till Steins Gate. Bring me on at Steins Gate.
Okay, fine. Have you seen the trailer?
No, I don't believe so. I've seen the trailers for the first 2 movies, but I think I haven't gotten around to the third one yet.
Okay, I'll send it to you after this is done because it's pretty. Pretty
You
good.
have a telephone buzzing. Talk about distractions, folks. Alex, in the midst of a podcast, has his phone buzzing on the table, disturbing the podcast.
Thank you for spiking the mics.
Spike the mic. Yeah,
Well, I ignored it because I'm in a podcast right
spike
now.
the mic. Yeah.
Okay, so now we're getting to Steins Gate. Are you happy, Matt?
I like Steins Gate.
We better get this out of the way. I am mad scientist.
Is
It's so cool.
Oh, you can't say the last part.
Yes.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. Darn it. Yeah. That is one thing good way to start off the podcast. The guy who plays Okabe, I have his name written down here somewhere. If
Are we talking about the Japanese actor?
Yes. Mamoru Miyono is his name. Probably butchering that name, but point is, I don't know if this guy's done any other stuff, but he's an amazing voice actor because he makes Okabe one of like the most interesting, unique anime characters like ever.
Oh, really?
I think so. Because I was thinking about that as I was like watching the early episodes of the show. Is there another anime character that is like him? You know, who's like this wacky scientist, but also super caring and nice and down to earth at heart.
He actually plays Ling Yao in Full Metal Alchemist
Oh.
Brotherhood.
Well,
for the Japanese version.
oh, he does a great job there because Ling is an amazing
He
character.
plays some stuff in the Pokemon movies, and
Yeah, a lot of them.
he actually
Okay,
for
so
him.
he-
He's actually he's the in Wolf's Rain. He's Kiba.
Okay,
So
so he's
got
actually been in a
some-
lot.
He's been in quite a bit, so he's not.
He's no stranger.
He's no stranger to the anime.
I see.
I know you watched the Japanese version, but
Yes,
I do have to
I
say, you didn't.
No, I did too.
Okay, well, I've seen the English version, and from what I've seen of both, 'cause I've flipped through both, going back and forth on my sets. Both are done very well. If you see the series one way, go back and watch it in the other, because this is one series where you know how the whole subs versus dub debate, where you say you watch usually whatever one you watch you like the best.
Yeah, whichever
no,
you see
this
first.
Steins Gate is one of those series where it's like both are very well done. It really doesn't matter which one you go to. You can go to the Japanese and it'll be great. You can go to the American or the English, and because we speak American,
America.
it'll be great. The point is, no matter which way you choose, it's going to be great. Now, the one line that Chase started us off that we couldn't finish, that is only in the Japanese version because he's talking English.
Well, that's something
Yeah,
one.
what's up? Whatever happened to that in the dub? Sorry to interrupt, Alex.
The problem with doing English in a dub is it doesn't make sense because you're already speaking in English. So it was, I forget how they rewrote it. It was some other thing. Like, it was creative, but it wasn't nearly as funny as the Japanese version.
But that's the thing, though, because I'd seen like reviews and little clips from Steins Gate and stuff before I watched it, and I thought he only did the English like once in a while, but he does it like every episode.
Oh yeah, in the Japanese version, if you want the English, watch the Japanese. If you want more of perverted, like not perverted comedy, but the comedy in the English version is a little more center based to like you're gonna understand it. Like for example, I guess in the first episode, I don't know if this happens in the Japanese version, but Okabe in the English version refers to we could sell this on eBay. In the Japanese version, it's some Japanese site that they could put the metal oompa, like in the first episode.
Yeah, yeah.
The point is, the American dub has things that, as an American, like eBay, everyone knows what eBay is. Just little rewrites that make it a little more easier. And that was my first barrier when I watched Steins Gate, is I saw the Japanese version, didn't care for it as much. I watched it in English, and I went back and forth in other parts of it, and they're both good. It's just my problem with the Japanese version is it does make some references that, not too many. Don't get me wrong, but
Yeah. Well, they do talk about the @channel a lot. I was wondering if that was supposed to be something like a reference to 4chan or something
the
like that.
@channel is like a forum. It's more popular in Japan, and the thing is, in the English version, it doesn't get written out, but the dialogue, like there's a whole joke about Christina posting
Right, on A-chan.
on 8chan, and she's embarrassed about it. That sort of gets written out of the English version. Not terribly, like it's just a little joke. Like it still shows her obviously in that scene, but they play the joke a little differently. So very minor little details, but like an @channel, that's going to make more sense in Japan than it is in the States. So the dub of what they did, like they knew this was going to be a big seller, and quite honestly, Steins Gate has been in the top Amazon selling on Right Stuff. It's been selling very, very, very well for Funimation. So you want to talk about making money? Funimation made some money on this Steins Gate movie.
Oh, yeah.
They will definitely be picking up this new movie, which, do you know anything about the movie, Chase?
Yeah, apparently it involves time travel and the main scientist being lost or something.
We'll talk about that at the end because it actually takes place after the original series.
Right.
Which is interesting. So we'll talk about that at the end, I guess. Would you say so, Alex?
Yeah, that sounds good.
But
yeah, definitely. Before I watched Steins Gate, because like I said, I'd heard about it for a long time. We've talked about doing it on the podcast for weeks now, and we finally got around to doing it. I knew it was like critically acclaimed as one of the best anime of 2011. Thinking about it now, 2011 was a darn good year for anime because you had Steins Gate, you had Madoka, and you had Fate Zero. Right off the top of my head, there's 3 great shows that came out in that one year.
So I mean, technically, I'm trying to think. Oh, yeah, I didn't think about what was my favorite anime last year.
In 2012,
Lupin the Third.
Lupin the Third. Well, that did come out.
mine would probably be Psycho-Pass because the only two I saw that came out in 2012 were that and Sword Art, and Psycho-Pass is definitely
okay. Let's
better
say
than Sword
Psycho.
Art.
It has to end in that year, so
Well-
that would be for 23.
Well, so you're saying it has to end, not start in that
I don't
year?
know. You see, you can get really picky with those. I mean, I'll have to think about it here, but I mean, there's a lot of anime I watch. Well, that doesn't count then because I guess that would just be anime I watch. Whatever. Continuing on with the Steincast.
Okay, the Steincast. We should call it that.
Steincast.
It's the Steincast.
Yeah, well, it was interesting because I'd like I said, I'd seen these reviews and I'd read before that the first half of the show was really slow, but the first episode is surprisingly dense. Like a lot happens in that first episode.
Yeah, you don't understand the first episode until later on in the series. It doesn't. You don't make that connection.
Well, as soon as I was watching it, I immediately was like, okay, well, at the last few episodes of the show are going to involve him coming and back in time and explaining all this stuff because there were too many coincidences going on for it to just be random.
It's a bit of an off-putting thing that I found with a lot of people. They don't like that first episode just because once you get to the second episode, they want to know what happened in that first one, and it doesn't explain it for a little while.
It also addresses to
Yes.
Yeah, and once again, I'd heard about that from Gigook's review actually that I watched before the show, and for a second there, I thought that was all that character did was do the do, which I'm very glad that she didn't end up doing that because Mayuri is actually a very good character in the show.
Still Moe though.
Well, yeah,
It's a little bit. I mean, and that's one of the things. Like, it's a little moe. I mean, basically, what Steins Gate is it's a harem, but you put science over it, and then that makes a a harem.
Yeah,
Harem.
I know what you mean.
Well, I want to go so far as
think
to
about
say
it.
it's
You've got Daru and Okabe. They are the only 2 guys, and they are
No.
surrounded by a cast of females.
No, it's definitely like that. But I wanted to go far as to say harem. It's it's based on a visual novel. Just like Haruhi's based on a visual novel. Just like
Which
a lot
girl
of these.
do you want to date?
Exactly. You can tell it's one of those shows. Shows like.
But it hides it. I think it
Clannad,
does very well at what it does.
Yeah, the worst part getting to that for me is in the second half of the show where we have 3 episodes.
talking about the second half?
Well, since you mentioned it, I want to jump to it. We can jump around.
We can jump around.
It's a conversational podcast. We flow with the conversation.
Let's time travel to the future.
Exactly. We're in a new world line right now, folks. It just
No, I
happened.
refuse.
But
We are in the beta line now.
yeah, the thing that got to me the most as far as it like standing out as, oh, this is based on a visual novel is in the second half where it's like, oh, well, now we've got to go and basically address the wishes of the 3 girls and reverse their D-mails in order to set things back to the beta world line. And that is definitely where it felt like the most like a visual novel, and of those 3 episodes, 2 of them really didn't bother me. The one with Ruka kind of did because it's like, well, let's just go on a date. It's one of those, characters going to go on a date episodes in the show.
See, that didn't bother me as much. It's when they were doing these, once they had figured out time travel was a possibility and each of the girls was doing it for their own thing, you could kind of figure like, Okabe, changing with time isn't good.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. He's even like thinking, I think from after the very first like D-mail is sent, he starts thinking about like, well, this probably isn't a very good idea, but usually the character, it's always a deal, like with with what's her name, the Nyan girl, pink-haired girl,
Ferris Nyanya.
yes, Ferris.
Ferris.
I think she was going to tell him about the IBN 5100
Yep.
in return for him letting her send the D-mail.
Nope.
So pretty much all of them had a reason, as to why he was giving them the D-mail, basically.
I mean, this show really constructed doing the time jumping. I thought it did it very well. For a time jumpy show, it pretty much covered all of its plot points. I do have to feel Ferris's story out of all of them was the weakest. I mean, that's up to. I mean, there was the whole thing with her father and stuff, and that was emotional, but I felt like it was the weakest point. Like her out of her.
It is kind of difficult to craft a story around the girl who invented Moe culture or something.
Oh, I know. I loved that though. I loved how it's like we wiped out Moe. I'm like me and Zoe, who's the VP of our anime club here. Me and her were just like, yes, Moe has been written from existence. And then when we realized, we got to go back in time and fix this.
It wasn't just Moe, though. It was like Akihabara became...
all anime culture, in that area.
Taken away.
It was taken away. So it was sort of sad, but Moe was defeated.
Yeah, no, I agree. Like, overall, Ferris wasn't that strong of a
Chase lifts
character.
his eyes.
But when we get to her whole arc, reversing her D-mail, I was legitimately shocked when she was like, the D-mail I sent back, let my father live, basically. And because I thought that was a very interesting sort of setup for the episode where Okabe sort of has to come to the terms with like, well, how can I say that Kurisu's life is more important than her dad's life? It's two human, or not Kurisu's life, I should say, Mayuri's life. It's two human lives, and one way one dies and one way the other dies, So how can you ask her to make that sort of decision? Is Mayuri's life more important just because, she got shot by these random terrorists rather than however her dad died in that accident?
Apparently they're like childhood friends or something.
What, you mean Mayuri and Okabe?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, no, that's definitely shown. There's that little flashback we get with the two of them after like Mayuri's grandma died and all that. Which I did think was quite cute because that was later on the show, and that's where we got the reveal that basically Okabe made up this whole Hououin Kyouma, thing, and like how she's his hostage and all that, based off of like a TV show they watched when they were kids, and he was just doing it to sort of, make Mayuri smile and distract her from the tragedy of her grandma's death.
Yeah. And apparently the whole thing when she talks about reaching her hands and stuff, according to Zoe, that is referencing to some kind of quantum physics thingamajig.
You mean the name for it?
The name for it, like reaching your hand up towards the sky whenever she would do that. It's something to do with quantum stuff. I don't remember. Zoe's not here to tell us.
Well, and if you look at the episode titles, a lot of them are references to science-y things that I don't get. But there they are.
Yeah, they did their homework for this, and that was one thing I was really impressed with. And I mean, don't get me wrong. We all know I make the funny joke. I hate the Moe thing. Blah 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 blah. But you got the one thing you do like. I want to kind of clarify this so that people understand. If it weren't for Moe, anime would be gone now because Moe has kept the industry afloat.
Yeah.
In hard times.
Well, and I think, like we said, like there are ways you can make Moe work. Like with I'd say like both Kotoru-san and Madoka is probably good example of.
See, technically you could say Madoka is Moe, but my blunting of that is its magical girl. So it's like,
and then the thing with that is they're the people who don't care about Madoka for its super dark story and everything. They just care because it's cute girls, blah, Yeah, those people, which like you said, they're a little bit detestable, but their money helps keep the anime companies making anime. So, so be it.
So be it. But I mean, I didn't have any problem with the characters in this show. I really liked all of the characters. I mean, even from Ferris to Mayuri to Shining Finger.
I don't know. Moeka definitely got on my nerves
Finger.
a bit. Okay, fine. We'll call her Shining Finger. Because, from the very beginning, she's completely emotionless, communicates only through the texting, she's just sort of this uncomfortable character, very much the Rei Ayaname, Angel from Angel Beats, that sort of classic character where, she's the silent girl who's nice but is quiet and doesn't say anything, blah, blah, blah.
At least she has some characteristics after the whole time travel thing was taken care of.
Yeah, right. And after it comes back, it does seem like she's a little bit more open. And, I will admit, when episode 12 rolls around, and she steps up there in the black outfit, with the gun and everything, I was legitimately surprised. Like, I hadn't thought about her being the bad guy, That was definitely a twist that caught me. Since what I'm talking about, what did you guys think of that? Because personally, when episode 12 rolls around and the terrorists show up and shoot Mayuri in the head, and like basically stuff gets real in that episode.
See, you know what?
That
You know what sucks when you're watching the DVD release? That's where it cuts off, and then I watched that and I'm like, I need more. Where's my second half? It's just like
funny. Complete opposite to me. Like I pretty much watched like episode like 3 to like 12, and then after 12 was done, it goes, okay, well, the main character's dead. I'm going to go ahead and go home and soak this all in and continue with the next day.
What do you mean the main character? She was a main character. She wasn't the main character.
She's a main character. Don't worry about it. Whatever.
Okay.
Yeah, so the death was a surprise, but I wasn't like crazy about it or anything.
I don't know. I got emotionally attached. I have to say the first half of the series, even though it is slow, that is the one thing critics say. They say that is probably, out of the whole show in general, that is probably one of the worst parts of it. I had no problem with that.
Yeah, I would say I didn't. I definitely like the second half of the show more than the first half, just because the second half is where the plot really gets moving and where the real emotional stuff happens. But the first 12 episodes I think they're fine for what they are. They're building the relationships. There's lots of great comedy in there, and they've also got, they're setting up the plot points. With the D-mails getting sent, and like I'd say in every episode, something pretty important plot related happens. Either they send a new D-mail and change world lines, or something new is revealed about the IBN or CERN or whatever. So it's all building up to episode 12, and then stuff happens after that. And what was I going to say? Oh, and I do think they do a really good job in those first 12 episodes of sort of establishing the rules of the world, because I do like how it's not like they choose one episode and are like, okay, this is the episode where we dump all the time travel theory sciencey stuff on you. They split it apart. Like there's a few different times when he goes and talks to John Titor, and it goes
John Titor.
Fine, John. No, they don't pronounce it that way in the Japanese anyway. They call him Titor.
Also, the reveal on who he was actually pretty surprising.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, that was pretty.
I didn't see that coming.
This series played a lot of the curveball and baseball kind of dealio.
But yeah, what did you guys think of that? Because I think they did a good job with those explanations where they they're showing like the blue lines and like the ball jumps from one line to the next one. They're talking about world lines, and they're going basically they don't just dump all that on you all at once. They split it up like a few different episodes, short little segments of those cover time travel theories. Or like there's that episode where Kurisu goes over how the microwave, what was it called? The name of the
D
microwave?
machine, or the no, what
It was like, I don't know. It the subtitles, it was always like part of it was part of in a
temporary
parentheses.
name.
Yeah.
Oh, the temporary name.
Yeah.
What was it? Not the D machine. What am I thinking?
You got a computer in front of you. Why don't you look it up?
Yeah, I will.
Okay.
But
yeah, whatever. The microwave time travel machine. There's that episode where Kurisu goes over how it works, and what the rules are of the time travel. They split it up, and because they split it up, from episode to episode, it's not being dumped on you all at once. So I'm able to take it in and I digest it, and it's sort of your knowledge of the time travel sciencey stuff evolves as the show evolves, which I think they do a really good job with. Because it's easy in other time travel movies or shows or whatever to really get completely lost in the complexity of them. And Steins Gate does a good job, even when we get into the second half and he's jumping all over world lines and time leaping and stuff. They do a pretty good job of keeping you grounded as far as what's going on. I was never thinking like, oh, is this a time paradox going on? I'm sure there are time travel things wrong with it if I went into a scientific detail about it, but it never seemed to contradict itself in how its rules worked, which I thought was nice. One thing I was thinking about after I was watching the show, because the part of the whole second half of the show is he goes back and undoes all the D-mails, in order to get back to the Beta World line, where Mayuri doesn't die. But there's actually one D-mail that they don't undo. That's the one where he sent out the lotto ticket. That was like the first one after. It was the first one they did after like the first episode. So secondly, the second D-mail they did. That was where Okabe realized he had the reading Steiner ability, to keep memories across world lines. But I went back to rewatch it just to be sure. And really, the only thing that changed between world lines there was that he got the numbers and gave them to Ruka, and Ruka went but got one of the numbers wrong, so she didn't win anything.
So technically, the world the show ends up in the last episode isn't the same from the first episode.
Well, no, it's not because they're in the Steins Gate world line. He's gone back and changed the pasts where Kurisu, seems to have died but really survived. So it's definitely a different timeline. Mm-hmm. Well, when at the end of episode 22, when he does make Kurisu, he has this moment with Kurisu, and they make the decision to go back to the Beta world line. And he presses the button, and everything goes back, and at that point, they're pretty much in the world line that the show started with, where Kurisu died in the science building and everything, and everything seems all hunky and dory until at the end of there they reveal, oh, you got to go stop World War III. Suzuha shows up in her time machine.
Yeah, I mean, when I first heard World War III, I'm like, but it wasn't overly drawn out or whatever. I really like the conflict at the end, and it was because of these certain things. We're missing the whole point here that the fact that this European CERN, this European institute that does all this technology and stuff, which apparently in the real world their name is spelled with a C, not an S.
Huh.
So
probably intentional.
Yeah, well, intentional because they don't want to get their butts sued.
Right.
And whatever. But the point is, I like that concept of this government, not a government, but this, thing that does science, figures out how to do black holes, sends people. I love Error Human is Dead. Whenever I go to the dining halls and they have green Jello, I get green Jello, and Error Human is Dead. Also, now I've got a group of friends in JCon who are now drinking Dr. Pepper because it is the drink of science.
Yeah, they don't. They make it very, very minuscule changes, like it's Doc Pepper.
It's DK Pepper.
DK Pepper.
Mm-hmm.
There was a shot of Prangles at one point.
Prangles.
And yeah, with the thing with CERN, that was the one thing that definitely stood out to me. I don't know
some Prangles.
If the makers of the show actually have something against CERN in real life, or it was just there for them to be the punching bag of the show.
Probably a copyright thing or something. Apparently, I know that in America, copy fair use stuff like that is apparently a lot tighter now than it was a couple decades ago.
Well, yeah, that's why if you look at old Bebop stuff, you can see Coca-Cola advertisements in it. They weren't so worried about it 10 years ago because anime was, what's anime? Now that anime is a little more popular company, and with the internet, the world is communicating a lot easier. So product placement is a bit more of a hassle, but I like it when a show makes those weird references like Prangles or DK Pepper.
Or what was it? It was in Anohana was WcDonald's. Remember that?
Yeah,
WcDonald's. Yeah,
classic WcDonald's.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah.
Maybe they have a Burger Queen.
Indeed. What did you guys think in because we get, I think it's episode 13, where we get Okabe, for the first time, he's going and trying to save Mayuri, and the first time I think. What happens on the first time? I think they get away, and then the Rounders people eventually find him and end up killing Mayuri. And then the second time he gets away from them, but then the little girl Nae shows up and accidentally hits Mayuri into the subway train.
Yeah.
And then from there, I think we do this little skip where it's he basically says I kept going back and back, and kept on trying to save Mayuri, but in the end, I could never save her. And you get this little montage of her dying a bunch of times. Mm-hmm. Did it bother you guys at all that, they sort of, they don't let us experience all those repetitions. They just sort of get it all away in a 5-minute
There was
montage.
there was one montage where it's she was just walking and she dies. It's how did she even die in this one? It was really weird. But, I don't know. I wasn't as bothered with that. I do have to admit the time she gets run over by a car is super cheese. I just felt the car wasn't going the right velocity. Sorry, that's a nitpicking thing, but whatever.
When you say that, you're talking about one of the early ones, or the one in episode 21 where Okabe tries to kill himself and she hits him out of the way. Because that one worked for me for sure in that episode. Although I do think you're right, there was another one where she got hit by a car.
Yeah, she got hit by a car and it was really lame. And then whatever. Yeah. Point is, I didn't mind her dying all the times. I liked it when she died.
I liked it when she died.
I liked how it affected Okabe's character. It drove him like
No, I'm not saying that I'm mad that she died. I'm just saying, they pull a little narrative, let's speed up here where, they're showing you that Okabe's, they're telling you that Okabe's repeated it tons and tons of times, dozens of times, but you're not really seeing a lot of those actually happen, it's just passing real quick. So, you don't get as emotionally attached to it. But at the same time, I understand because they don't want to have, 3 or 4 episodes of the show all be Okabe tries to save Mayuri and she dies every time. After a while, it would just get repetitive. Mm-hmm. So I understand because they had to speed that up so that they can move on to the next plot point of the show, which is basically where they focus on reversing the D-mails, because he thinks that's the way to
fix it. And see, we as a group, when we were watching it, we kind of came to the conclusion, it's like, if they're reversing all the D-mails, that means they gotta reverse the first one.
Oh, right.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Whenever something really sad and depressing comes on screen, it's just like...
Yeah, that's the thing.
Smiles.
Like I said before, and when I was watching episode 1, I was immediately thinking oh, they're going to come back to this eventually. But I guess I just got so caught up in the show, I completely forgot about the first D-mail and about all the stuff that happened in the first episode. So when they make those reveals of, if you go back to the beta timeline, Kurisu's going to be dead, or we have to go back to episode 1 in order to save Kurisu, those things actually surprised me because even though I sort of knew about them in the back of my head, I just forgotten in everything else that had happened, in the show.
Mm-hmm. I just took a peek on the Wikipedia synopsis.
After you finished watching the episodes, just so you could understand.
No, during when I was watching it, I just know what was going on.
Let's see. I sometimes do that after I watch a show, if I'm confused about something that's happened. I did that for Fate Zero after watching episode 25 because it was what just happened? But Steins Gate, I did that a little bit for Steins Gate, just at the end, just to make sure what I saw on screen is actually what happened. Because at the very end there, it pretty heavily implies that that Kurisu was able to maintain some of her memories from the other world lines. That they were those dreamlike sort of things.
Yeah, that was interesting.
Yeah. I did think, as far as really sad moments of the show go, because they definitely had a few, one of the worst for me was where Mayuri was talking at her grandma's grave. She's talking about how all the deaths that she's experienced in the other world lines are dreams to her.
Oh, yeah, I love it. She doesn't understand that they've actually happened, and she's like, I've had these horrible nightmares. And it's just when she says that, Okabe is just getting more...
sad,
and I love it.
More sadness.
I don't want to say I'm sadistic, but you know what? I like something that's sad. I like a show that makes me feel the feels, and when sad stuff like that is happening, you're feeling the feels.
Yeah.
My favorite. I don't know if we want to go into this topic, but my favorite scene out of Steins Gate was with Shining Finger of Madoka when she was like, "I need you. You can't do with the cell phone."
Oh, after he steals it from her?
Yes. And she's like, I need it.
Really? That was your favorite moment?
When she just completely breaks down and and she's trying to bang on the door, and then he has to hold her down and you are going to kill yourself in 3 days. And I just,
Yeah.
That was one of my favorite scenes just because it's very emotional.
Yeah, that was intense.
That was interesting to me because I saw some people making this point online, I think, and I was thinking a little bit myself, because Madoka is the one that kills Mayuri in a lot of those timelines, and she's obviously working with the Rounders, and she's pretty evil and messed up and stuff. But, and I hated her, and I didn't really like her character that much even before it was revealed that she was part of the Rounders, so I was actually a little bit happy when Okabe pins her down and punches her in the face. But at the same time, if you look at that scene out of context, it does look a lot like a rape scene, disturbingly so.
A little bit. And then she looks at her arms. But the point is, when someone's going to kill himself and you know that they're the answer to key to saving this person, and it's
Well, and when you've watched this person kill your best friend
over and over
again, I could understand why you'd be kind of pissed at them.
Yes. So, yes, it does sort of look like a rape scene, but you know what? It's the emotions and the feels and just the when she is pounding against the door It is just so wonderful. I love the emotion. And then she's just like, I need FB. I need FB. So should we go into FB now? Because I loved who FB was.
Yeah, that was surprising. Apparently, I've read comments that apparently people joked that FB was
Facebook, yes. Even the group I was watching this with, we always joked it was Facebook. It's like, yep, it's Facebook. Facebook is evil.
Yeah, no, I agree. Like, I was always expecting Mr. Braun to be just this, side character who owned the store and got mad at Okabe, and that was going to be it. But they actually turned him into this more interesting character. Although the thing that did sort of confuse me is like, because even in the Steins Gate timelines, in the happier timelines, he still is like working with the leader of the Rounders. He's still FB. Still is. Working with CERN, isn't he? He's just not being sent after.
Apparently, what I can recall from the episode, sorry to interrupt again, but apparently it was like he sends messages to other people, except he does or be in disguise as others' personas, pretending to be like their ultimate desires or something like that.
Well,
for
he was tricking
Texas.
people because I guess somehow he understood who they were like personally, and when like imitate the person that person needed the most. So for Moeka, it was like she thought she was a girl, that FB was a woman, and this like motherly sort of figure, which I did think was kind of a cool thing, because she at first when he says I'm FB, she's like so shocked. She's like, there's no way FB has to be a woman. He's like, I was just manipulating you silly little girl, And what did you guys think there at the end, or near the end of that episode, where they go out to that construction field and Mr. Braun shoots Moeka?
Oh,
and then
I know. I loved it.
That was surprising.
Of course you did.
Alex, you need to know when something disturbing and messed up happens. I love it.
I was thinking that he was going to kill Okabe and Kurisu.
Nope,
but
he just pulls the gun on Moeka. It's just like, she lived her purpose. She's done now.
Right.
Don't need her anymore.
Well, I think part of the idea also was like it was like a mercy kill, because what CERN would do to her when they found out she was a traitor would be even worse. That sort of a deal.
And then the whole thing you learn about his kid, that he's doing it for his child. It's kind of like, it was a little weak for a thing, a little weak for a reason, but it was still a good enough reason for me. I'm like, no one saw Mr. Braun coming as the villain.
Nope.
I mean, it was a little weird when it's like, you kids are lucky. You kids are sure lucky. You playing with your lab upstairs and earlier in the episode. And it's like, that's an interesting dialogue to say. And then once they're following the car and you see it's the truck, you automatically know it's like, because you only see the feet underneath the truck at first,
right?
And you know it's Mr. Braun.
Well, that was the thing though, because at first you see his truck, but you think at least I was thinking he's a member of the Rounders. He's helping transport the IBN 5100, off to France or whatever.
Yeah.
But then I didn't. So I thought he was working with the Rounders, but I didn't think he was FB.
Yeah, you think he's working with the Rounders, and then it's like, he's FB.
Yeah.
And I love how Mocha's little world is shattered when she figures out that FB is not a female. Because she was all like, but it has to be a female. They were kind in that. And he's like, no, I only did that because that's what you needed to hear. I gave people what they needed to hear. It was sort of sadistic, and I liked that.
I like that. So, yeah, it's pretty heavily implied that basically how CERN is making him do this is by threatening his kid. Like if he doesn't do what they want, they're going to go after her. Seemed to be the implication there.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just going to say this right now. I don't know. You notice something with the things I like in anime?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, these dark things. Well, that's one of the reasons going back to Madoka for a second, that's one of the reasons I love that show, is because you think it's going to be this happy-go-lucky magical girl show, and then it's like, oh god, this is like
that
the saddest.
anime aired in Australia, and Australians were in for a world of hurting.
What does Australia have to do with anything?
I'm just saying, because little kids are going, oh boy, it's magical girls, and it goes to this deep dark.
Yeah,
it's airing on TV
in Australia.
Interesting.
Oh,
yeah. No, the part that always gets to me is episode 10 in general is so sad.
It's so good. Even
so
Ono
good.
himself liked it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, apparently he did like an interview thing where he talked about the show a little bit. Basically, the basic thing with that is that he liked it and definitely praised Homura's characteristics throughout as the show developed, and especially episode 10. So it's got the Ono seal of approval.
All right. For whatever that's worth, right?
Right.
The one bit that did confuse me about Moeka's whole story and FB and all that is, he goes to her apartment and finds her dead, and she committed suicide or whatever. But in all the timelines, she shows up with the Rounders, to kill Mayuri. So if she commits suicide, how could she can't be there to kill Mayuri? So how does that work? Is that just
It'll be taken care of by the Rounders. The rest of the
I know, but my point is he was saying you're destined to die. No matter what you do, you're going to commit suicide in 3 days or whatever. But in other world lines, we've seen that's not the case because she shows up. Because obviously FB comes and gives her the order to kill Mayuri. And she goes and does it. So it's not in every.
I thought that took place after. No, it didn't take place. The point is, eventually she was going to die. Mayuri, because every time they would go back and reverse something, Mayuri's date of death would change.
Day, yeah.
So therefore, Moeka's would change also.
Yeah, but wasn't the whole idea she was killing herself because she hadn't heard from FB in days and days, so she hadn't gotten the order yet from him to go after Mayuri. So does she just not get that order in certain world lines, and she does get it in others?
No, I thought she still got it. I don't remember that.
Because remember, he asks her if FB told you to kill someone, would you do it? And she was like, yes. She said that she would, but it was obvious she hadn't been given any orders yet, or else she would have been doing that. The whole point was that she hadn't got any orders from FB, and she was despairing because she's like, "Where are you, FB?"
I thought in that timeline that Mayuri had already died, and he was already.
No, Mayuri hadn't already died because. That might have.
It's been a little longer.
That was the one where he was going to. I think that was the one where he was going to follow her, and he had Kurisu. No, that can't be right. Because there was, I forget which one it was. There was one world line where he was going to follow Mayuri to find out exactly when she died, and Kurisu went and followed her instead. And she eventually calls Okabe just before he travels back in time, and she's crying and saying, "Mayuri's dead," and he's like, "Well, it's at 7:58 that she dies," or whatever. But I don't think it was the Moeka line actually. Now that I think about it, so one of the bits of Steins Gate that does get a little confusing is keeping all these things straight.
Makes sense to me.
Well, explain it for me then, because I'm still a little confused.
Yeah, I mean, the whole thing with the Mayuri thing you talked about, I always assume it was a case where, remember all those deaths that kept happening to her? I'm assuming that was, again, just alternative timelines.
Yep.
So I'm not sure.
I didn't question as much.
I'm not sure on why you were confused about that. It was pretty well established that it was a different. They were all just different timelines.
Right. I don't know. I guess I was just a little bit confused about what was going on.
Alex is confused about everything.
It's true. I'm a very confused person. All right.
So
it was interesting as you were talking earlier. We were talking about sad moments, and you said the moment that really got to you was Moeka, freaking out or whatever.
yeah, well, that was my favorite scene.
Okay, yeah. See, the scene that really got to me, that punched me in the gut, was with what's her face? Oh God, I'm gonna forget her name. The girl from the future.
Oh yeah.
Suzuha. That was
Suzuha.
it. Yes.
Yeah.
When she, they finish fixing the time machine, and everyone's saying goodbye to her, and that's where you figure out, Daru is her dad.
Yeah, that was the most surprising thing to me, if you ask me.
I kept on thinking it was going to turn out to be Okabe, because they kept on talking about how her dad made the time machine.
It's fridge logic. Once you think about it, it does make sense.
Yeah, well, and Daru's got brown hair. She's got brown hair. It works. But the part that really got to me was she travels into the future, and then you get that letter from her that Mr.
Yes.
Braun gives to her, and it's just the I failed. That really got to me, and then it turns out, she committed suicide after she regained her memories after 24 years of doing nothing to solve the problem, and she just felt like everything that she had done her life was a complete waste. And Matt's laughing evilly over here
Waste.
Because you love that moment too, I'm sure.
I do. I can't help myself. When it comes to my media, I become very sadistic with it, and sadness is just awesomeness, awesome sauce.
Just awesomeness for you, huh?
It's sad, but it's enjoyable. I guess the point is, I don't like my problem with as a child growing up for a long time is you Disney film. It was happy ending. Disney
ending.
was a happy ending. Yeah, I get this. Okay, yeah, there are people who die sometimes, whatever. But the point is, you always got the happy ending. I like these shows. Like, okay, Steins Gate does have a happy ending, sort of in the end. The point is, when you have these dark
Isn't that mostly a problem with the 50 Disney films and the Renaissance films? I mean, I never thought it was a problem with like the initial 5 or any of the package films.
What do you mean?
It's like it feels like Snow White and Dumbo. They're all just pretty much like emotional conclusions. I mean, those characters were like passive characters who have to go through like this really emotional, really high adrenaline adventure that they pretty much just walked into without any reasoning. So once they actually get their happy ending, hey, they actually earned it. But then it's really the 50s movies onwards where you feel like that those happy endings were just put on just because, well, it's Disney. They got to put a happy ending in there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And
that's the whole
that's for another podcast.
Suzuha's thing with Anime News Network. They have something called the list. Like they list off the top things, and Suzuha in the top 10 tearjerkers that'll empty a tissue box. Suzuha's fixing her timeline was number 10 because basically, she kills herself, and the only way to prevent this is to have her leave that timeline without figuring out that Daru was her father.
Right. Well, the thing that's interesting, well, number one was, it was revealed before she left that the time machine could only go backwards in time. So she was going to go back to 1975 and then get stuck there, and you thought you were going to meet her again as like an old woman, but having gotten the IBN 5100, but then it turns out something was wrong with the time machine and she lost her memories until 24 years later, and then she suddenly remembers and is like, oh crap, And the part I did find interesting, it was brought up. It was really brought up. What are you saying?
Nothing. Just keep going.
The thing that was brought up, it was brought up for the first time, like in a big way, with the Suzuha incident, but is something that carries out through the entire show. Is this whole idea that as Okabe needs to, redo these D-mails and reset, the world lines back to how it was originally, but doing so means that he's basically eliminating all of these friendships that he's built up with these characters. Like by the time that you reach the end of the show, nobody knows who Kurisu is. Nobody knows who Suzuha is. Suzuha isn't in the Steins Gate world line. Ruka and Moeka and all these characters aren't really members of the lab yet. So all of these experiences that they had and all these friendships that they built, no one remembers them except for Okabe because they don't exist in the other world lines. And that is It's something that sort of shows, time travel can do all this good stuff, and it also comes with the bad. And obviously, you got to undo the bad stuff, but undoing the bad stuff also undoes all the good stuff.
I just realized Homura and that character pretty much suffered the same fate.
No, there's plenty of time loop movies. There's like stuff like Groundhog Day and stuff like that. But there's a lot of comparisons between Homer's story and Okabe's story for sure. They're both trying to save a person from a death that's sealed by fate, and no matter how many times they try, they can't seem to stop it. There's really not too much of a difference, except that Homura's a magical girl and ends up getting saved by the person that she's trying to save because Madoka's ridiculous, ridiculously awesome. Interesting. Okay. I was just looking up a thing here. I've got this thing of a Steins Gate timeline. It says here that on August 15th, in like all of the timelines, FB dies, M4 dies, Mayuri dies, the laboratory is raided. So I guess in that particular world line, the laboratory gets raided even though Moeka isn't with them, sort of like you guys were saying. So I guess just for whatever reason in that world line,
Yeah, the point is, Moeka will get killed. She's going to die sometime, whether the raid happens or not.
Let's see, that still doesn't make sense to me, though, because the whole idea, the reason why she was killing herself was because FB wasn't telling her anything, right? She thought FB had abandoned her. But in the timelines where she goes and does the raid, FB's commanded her to go do the raid, and so she does that. So she has a purpose in those world lines. So for whatever reason, in that world line that they were in, which was thinking about it, that's because they go in the order of the D-mails. So they undo Ferris's first, then they undo Ruka's, and then Moeka's is the last D-mail to undo. Mm-hmm. So
they got to figure out what it was.
Right, because they had to figure out, and they had to go in the order that they were sent,
Yep.
So Moeka's was the last one to be undone. And so for whatever reason in that particular world line, that's right, because actually it makes sense. Because remember, that's the world line where Moeka, after Moeka's D-mail, the IBN 5100 gets stolen by Moeka, from Ruka's place, and gets stolen and gets given to FB. And after that point, FB no longer has any need for her, so she dies in that world line because she's already gotten the IBN 5100. And all the other timelines, CERN doesn't have actually, and some of them they do have the IBN 5100 because there's that bit where in the Ferris timeline how her dad gave it away because somebody kidnapped her when she was younger, and he sold the IBN 500 to get the money to buy Ferris back from the terrorists or whatever. I sort of wonder whether that was a CERN thing, where they kidnapped the daughter in order to get the IBN 5100, and so they had it for a long time in that world line. Mm-hmm. 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 So that's the answer. That's what's come up in my head. So in the Moeka world line, after her D-mail, she has no more use because she's already gotten the IBN 5100. All the other world lines, she hasn't gotten the IBN 500 herself. So FB still, that's her mission from FB. So she does still participate in the raid. And that one she doesn't, and that's why she always dies in that world line, but not in the others. There you go. Just came to a revelation on this podcast about this show. Can get a little complicated at times, but like I said, I think overall they do a good job of making it make sense, for a time travel show, because time travel always screws with your head no matter what.
It screws with everyone's heads.
Yeah, no matter what you're in.
Even The Simpsons.
Did The Simpsons have a time travel episode?
Yeah, Treehouse of Horror 5, where apparently Homer jams his hand into the toaster, and it follows him going back to the time of the dinosaurs. And apparently he does stuff with dinosaurs. He winds up in alternative universes where her aunts are, or at least Marge's sisters are dead, and donuts reign. And there's another one where Flanders has taken over the world, and another where Maggie speaks in James L. Jones's voice.
Interesting. Oh, two things I just was looking at my notes here. I forgot to mention. One, when we were talking about, Mayuri dying a bunch, and we're in that part of the show where Okabe keeps on trying to save Mayuri and keeps on failing. There are a number of times where Okabe gets away from the Rounders way easier than he should. There's that one where what's her name? Moeka's in the car, drives up and shoots Mayuri in the head. Then Okabe just gets out of the taxi they're in and runs off. And then it cuts to him putting on the headset and traveling back in time. Yep. There are a number of times where it seems like he gets away way too easily from the Rounders.
Yeah, little plot hole.
Plot convenience.
Convenience, how... they're just well, I guess they don't expect him to go back to it. They know. Well,
why wouldn't they though? They know he's got a time machine,
but they don't know how. I don't know if they don't know if it's usable or not. I don't know. There might be a detail there that's kind of defending it, but
yeah, I think it's one of those plot convenience things where they sort of let it slide, away from reality a bit to make that work. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And to be fair, they want Okabe, they want to capture him, but they don't want to kill him. The whole idea is he gets captured, but Mayuri is expendable. That's why she always ends up dying. And then, something I definitely wanted to mention. We haven't talked much about the music or any of the other aspects of the show, but I want to say the opening of the show is definitely one of those ones where I found myself not skipping it. I would watch it even though I'd seen it 5 times already.
You sorry to interrupt, but there was a Facebook post of you saying, "I'm never going to get tired of this" or something along those lines.
Yeah, I was just talking about how I loved it because I don't know. I got to imagine you love that opening, Matt, because it's got all those crazy shapes and stuff, very architectural.
Yeah, it's something you've got to see in, I'd say HD, because when you watch it in 480p. I don't know. It gets a little more muddy. I think it's one of those things you get a little more crisp. What were you gonna say, Chase?
Actually, and another thing I read about the opening is that the way the characters are like placed throughout the whole thing, like say one character will disappear, then another character disappears, then another character disappears. Apparently, that's in conjunction to how the whole D-mail thing business happened.
I think I read somewhere it was the order that they showed in the opening is actually the reverse order that they sent their D-mails or something like that. So yeah, you're right. There is an order to it. I don't just the animation's great there as well, but the song is really what gets to me. Like it's got just a great beat, and I especially like it there. It's got that like drop right before it gets to the chorus, and it's showing all those multiples of Kurisu as it, dollies back.
I also know apparently there were like new lyrics for like the last 2 episodes or something.
Well, it's not new lyrics; it's just different lyrics of the same song. And the opening itself is actually different. If you look, like there's more. The cuts aren't always the same.
Right.
The characters are showing up in places that they weren't before. And things are a little more like out of control. It seems like, which I thought was kind of a cool change because it showed, in a different world, Steins Gate very well could have ended after episode 22. They even sort of fake you out with it where everything's going swell in the ending credits, like it normally does with the glass of the hourglass thing, and then it's reforming, and then it stops, and you hear like the music fades out, and there's like the phone call is ringing, and that's where Suzuha makes the World War III line.
Yeah, landline.
Yeah.
Landline.
I don't know. Since we're on that, what did you guys think of that whole idea where like we said, basically, everything seems to be building up to this point where he's got to choose between Mayuri and Kurisu, and they finally come to this decision where I love you, Kurisu, but you should save Mayuri. That's what you've been building up to this whole time, and he does it, and he's in this world line, the beta world line where Kurisu's dead, but Mayuri lives, and he's all sad, and he gets rid of the time machine, and things sort of seem like they could be at an end, and then the last 2 episodes happen, and it's this final mission, if you will, to sort of close out the show. Did you guys think that worked, or
Worked with me.
It worked with me. Like I said, my major problem with the show is when the whole relationship plot line between him and Kurisu started really popping up near the end. That was just, I don't know. In my opinion, it felt like he was trying to save Mayuri because there was, maybe that was just me kind of siding with the relationship between him and Mayuri. I don't know.
You're a shipper, Matt.
I'm a shipper. Hey, as Clara has told us,
Clara.
Clara. Oh, Alex.
Get it right.
How dare you? I still mess it up because of you. I hate
It's
you.
not my fault.
I hate you. Whatever. The point is, we ship all the ships.
Yeah, no. I was talking with you about this earlier. I don't know how you feel about it, Chase, but as the show is going, I like you said, it's this visual novel sort of setup where it's like choose your girl, and they got all the different girls in the show. But it was definitely, as they were building it up, Mayuri and Kurisu were the two. They seemed to have. I could have seen the show going either way. I could have seen it being with Okabe ending up with the childhood friend, nicey nice Mayuri. But then there was also a lot of chemistry built up between him and Kurisu, and her being a tsundere, and all those different occasions and the interactions they had together, and especially there near the end where she's the one who comes up with the idea to, reverse the D-mails and helps him out in his quest to save her. So I guess I agree with you, Matt, in that, I certainly could have seen him going with Mayuri instead.
It just felt like it's like, oh, we got to jump back to the visual novel. Go back to what the fans in Japan want. I don't know.
But to be fair, Mayuri is definitely shown to be this, childhood friend, the friend he's been.
I know, but
with
he
the
was
longest.
like almost gonna like sort of give up on, he's like, I've tried to save her, and it's just it's not working.
Well, no, he wasn't going to give up on her. He wasn't going to give up on her until the revelation happens, right before Dara presses the button that, if I go back to the beta world line, Kreese is going to be dead. And he hesitates at that moment, and goes up on the roof and thinks about it. And that's the timeline where he takes Mayuri out, and they have that nice little day. And then he goes and jumps in front of the car, to try to kill himself and hoping that would solve the problem. And then Mayuri takes the blow for him instead. And you get all that. And, and then there's that moment after he tells Kurisu the truth at last, about that she's going to die in the beta world line. And and they go ahead and have like a long talk about it. I think that isn't that the scene where it starts raining outside and they go back into the building and she like sews up his lab coat and all that.
Yeah.
Which is a cute little scene. And then they start talking about her death and everything. And Okabe like can't basically he's like I don't accept this. I can't accept a world where there's, you know, you have to choose between two horrible options. One of your friends dies and one of your other friends die. And I didn't see him when he was running back to the lab to use the time machine again. I didn't see it as him using him trying to give up on Mayuri. It was more of a thing where he was just going to basically continue that loop of, you know, however many days it was, you know, because it increased in number of days as he undid each D-mail. But it basically seemed like he was just going to live within those loops of those days and basically live in a world where he couldn't accept living in a world where Mayuri had died, but he also couldn't accept living in a world where Kurisu was dead. So he was just going to live in that time loop and just keep repeating those days and just sort of live in that place forever and ever, you know, try to find the loophole where neither of them would die. But then Kurisu comes in and stops him and basically says, like, if you have to keep watching, you know, keep seeing Mayuri die or come close to dying, you know, all those different times, you know, that's going to break you. That's not going to be good for you. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, you know, it's not like basically my point is he's not giving up on Mayuri. He's trying to find the solution that doesn't allow for either of them to die. But in that case, though, that solution's worse than everything else in a way.
Sort of. It is true.
So, I don't know. I actually quite like the relationship between him and Kurisu.
It works, sort of, but I mean, I don't know. It's I don't know. I guess my ships just sail another way.
I don't know. I saw his relationship with Mayuri as more of that, like, you know, like he saw her as a sister, you know, or as like his closest friend, you know. There was, you know, certainly moments like where it was showed they had a very intimate relationship, just like that she understood him in a way that no one else quite did, you know, and he warms up to her, you know, when he doesn't to a lot of the other characters. But, you know, I think Kurisu was much more like on an even level with him, you know, because she was also like hugely intelligent, you know, and she had the lab coat. I love the little moment where she does the little pose like he does as Hououin Kyouma, and like she did the little crazy laugh. Yeah. You know, there were moments like that where it really showed like how similar they were, you know. So I think that works for their relationship, whereas his relationship with Mayuri was much more, you know, Mayuri's this little ditzy little cute little girl, you know, who's like I saw it as she's like a sister to him, you know. He cares deeply about her, but you know, there really wasn't that much like as far as like romantic, like, ooh, I've got the hots for this girl, you know.
Hots, baby.
I don't know, unless is there a particular moment where you really felt like, oh, he loves Mayuri right there?
I don't know, just the whole their whole relationship as a child. Okay, I guess maybe that's just something I shipped was the whole the child. Because, okay, you know, in every anime MOA-esque standpoint, you've got the childhood friend as a selectional choice of someone.
Yeah.
Actually, did they ever address on how old she was?
I assume she's as old as Okabe.
Which, this anime is wrong with its ages. Again, this is one of those things you add 4 or 5 years. What was the rule again with Yoko? You add 4. You remember I had this rule? You just add 4 or 5 years or something, 3 or 4, 4 or 5, whatever.
As in, like, for their age to match their looks. Yes.
Because apparently, like Okabe, like
he's supposed to be 18.
Yeah, I know. It's like, no, you are 22.
Yeah, I don't know. I could see him as
silly Japanese.
He doesn't have to be 22. I could see him as 20. You know, he does seem a little young as 18.
Older than me. I don't know. It's one of those shows. It's like, no, those aren't the ages. Silly Japanese.
Something that did sort of bother me is they never explain, like, is he just always doing the lab stuff? Like, he doesn't seem to have a job. He doesn't go to school. How do they pay
for? He's a college student, theoretically.
Really, but they never show anything of him going to school or ever talk about it.
Yeah, not this. Because do you really? We don't need to see the slice of life.
I don't. I'm not saying I needed to see that. It was just one of the questions I had because it's never brought up, like how they're paying for all this stuff at the lab or how they're doing anything really. You know, what he's like outside of the the lab excursions.
This is true.
You know, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. One complaint I saw somebody mentioning online was that they wanted to see more flashbacks, more of like the backstories of the characters, because all you really get is that one where like we were talking about earlier, where after Mayuri's grandma's died, and Okabe sort of comforting her, like you get a little bit of flashbacks with that between their relationship. That's really it, though. All the rest of the characters' backstories are left pretty vague. With the exception of Kurisu's, where we learn about her relationship with her dad. She has that whole monologue in that one episode. Mm-hmm. But personally, that never bothered me. Like they gave you enough about their backstories. I didn't need to know the details of it or what they were up to. Like in detail when they were younger, like how Okabe and Daru might have met, or how he met like all the other characters in the show.
Yeah.
It was fine as it was. I think not being shown. Keep the show in the present, where the plot's actually moving.
Yep.
Just agreeing with me?
No, well, there's a problem, Alex.
What's that?
Something appeared on my laptop that has me very disturbed.
What's that?
In Cincinnati, there's this little town called Marymount, and they are playing the new Ghibli film Up on Poppy Hill.
In Cincinnati?
In Cincinnati.
Wow. I didn't
I'm
know
really tempted to just say road trip. Cincinnati movie.
How far is Cincinnati from Athens?
Let me do that real quick. It's probably it's too much for too little.
For a movie.
Yes, I want to say it's a little over an hour or something. I don't know. I'd have to check. I will check.
Well, I know that I think Kenny and some other people live in Cincinnati, so maybe you could catch a ride with them when they go home or something like that.
Oh, the problem is it's this is not a film that's going to stay in this Marymount theater for super long time.
No, you're right. It's probably
kind of like limited. Why? Because it comes out tomorrow. It's like, why do you have to come out tomorrow? April 12th, 2013.
Did you check to see if it's coming out the Athena Grand? Because they had Arietti was here last year.
Well, that was also because it was Disney distributing it. This is the first one that Disney's kind of went bleh.
Well, it's less kiddish, certainly. It doesn't have as much of an audience as
it's
some
also
of the other
more
ones.
Japanese.
Easy.
Yes. So
one thing I wanted to bring up, going back to the opening real quick, because I don't usually pay much attention to like the lyrics, for like the songs and things. I usually just enjoy listening to the Japanese words.
Yeah, but it's not worth going back. 2 hours and 39 minutes.
Yeah, that's a little bit much for a movie. Costs more in gas than the movie ticket.
I know, but
Up on Poppy Hill will come out on DVD.
Yeah,
you can get it then.
Yeah.
But
then I know it's good.
I was looking at the lyrics for the Steins Gate song, and if you look at it, it pretty much lays out the plot of the main plot of the show in the lyrics. I know there are several other shows that do that. Like apparently, Geno Ibuchi said for the new Madoka film, if you examine the lyrics of Magia, the closing theme, like really closely, apparently that's pretty much what happens in this new movie.
He did in Madoka too.
What do you mean?
With the opening. Remember in episode 10 where it ends with the actual theme?
Yeah, with Connect.
It's kind of like that.
Yeah. But if you look at the lyrics, I think it's after the singer says "hacking to the gate." They're like right
hacking
before.
to the gate.
Yes. Yes. Where she's singing right there. If you look at the lyrics there, the lyrics in a rough English translation are, "Even if the heartbeats number in the billions, to you they are but a flickering existence. Whether we're trapped in the past or lamenting over the future, inevitability does not allow for even the slightest miscalculation."
I think that's before the hacking to the gate line.
Actually, you're right. That is before that.
The point is that it tells you the whole series. Like if you pay attention to those lyrics, it kind of spells out what the last half is with him trying to go save Mayuri.
Yeah, no, this is the bit that comes after hacking to the gate. It says, "So now I cross between world lines every second because I want to protect that smile of yours, and once again by a time loop without sadness, I'm engulfed, a solitary observer." So that pretty much is saying right there, like, well, he's traveling between world lines and to protect someone, and he's doing it, and he's the only one that knows. So that's pretty much what happens in the second half of the show right there. What did you guys think of those? There were a couple bits in the first half of the show that sort of hinted at the darker stuff to come. Like there's that one where he's out in space before an event horizon, and there's this voice talking to him, and then he looks and his arms become the green jello.
And wasn't there also that whole thing with like one of the characters having this evil eyes thing whenever like an airplane or whenever one of the characters showed up?
Oh, well, Suzuha
Yeah,
was giving
yeah,
Kurisu the evil eye
because for good reason, because
Yeah.
she was from the future, and Kurisu becomes one of CERN's main
people.
scientists.
Although,
which doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Well, actually, no, wait, because they would kill Mayuri and they would take the three of them in, and then
yeah, I think it was implied that they somehow blackmail Kurisu into working with them somehow in that world line. But that's very much future Kurisu. The current Kurisu has no feelings for CERN at all. I did think for a moment there, because Suzuha brings that up in one episode where she's like, Kurisu works for CERN or something, and Okabe doesn't really believe it. I thought for a second, like, maybe they were going to go in the direction making Kurisu evil.
Yes.
But
it didn't happen.
They didn't.
See, I would have liked Angel Beats a lot more if she had taken the computers and went evil. But it didn't happen. But that's for a different podcast, which has already happened.
Yes. Actually, since you mentioned Angel Beats, there was something I realized recently.
Oh boy.
I can't believe I never realized this, but do you know, I'm going to try, I won't spoil anything here, but basically the big twist of the show is staring you right in the face from episode 1. I don't know if you realize that.
Angel Beats?
Yes. Well, think about the twist of what the connection between Angel and Otanashi in the last episode. Think about what the name of the show is. It's called Angel Beats, or how the little teaser before the commercials is that little like heartbeat line that goes by.
Not funny, Angel Beats.
Or there was
Die.
Or how the opening is called My Soul, Your Beats. There are all these things like throwing it in your face, but I never realized
If this
it.
table did not have podcast equipment, it'd be flipped in the air.
What? So what? You don't like that they're hinting at it in that way?
Okay, we all know that I didn't care for Angel Beats because I thought it was going to be an action show, and it didn't be that way.
It didn't be that way.
It didn't be that way.
But it was a show that had the feels and the sadness.
I don't care about those feels and the sadness.
But you just said you like shows with the feels and the sadness.
I like shows when the feel and the sadness, but you know what? That's why we have this wonderful thing called Anohana, which we reviewed.
Yeah,
It is
and
wonderful.
Anohana
It was
is-
produced at the same time as Angel Beats, and is clearly the winner.
I'll admit, Anohana is probably better than Angel Beats. It's more
Chase, you have
focused
to deal with it.
than
You have to deal
Anohana
with it when
is.
I'm on.
But,
I am.
but Angel Beats is still a good show, and you're crazy for thinking it's that terrible. You're gonna go get
You're
dead
gonna
again.
add these to the our greatest hits. Okay,
No, that's what I call podcast.
podcasting.
Wow, you sound so happy about it.
Not about Angel Beats. But continuing on.
Yes, continuing on. Looking at my notes here,
We've covered a good.
we've covered a good portion of them. Just one thing that did sort of bug me, you know how Ruka's whole D-mail was to send back the line to her mom to eat vegetables so
Oh,
she
yeah,
could be a
that-
girl, and they let her go through with it because like, oh, that won't do anything. The fact that it actually makes her a girl, isn't that a little like, really?
Who
You're gonna
knows?
say vegetables actually did that?
One of my favorite scenes that everyone loves from this show is, blah 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 blah.
But she's a girl.
Yeah,
But she's a guy.
She's a guy.
but Ruka is in the English version. But Ruka is a dude.
It's a dude.
Yes, soft as the wind. Her hair blows. Blah blah blah.
A dude.
Ruka. Yeah, a dude or stuff that like it's
Yeah.
so. That's why I said like the English write up and the Japanese version both are good ways to go for it. Either way, just you do get some benefits either or with each one.
Yeah,
but
if we're talking about
yeah, that one was lame. Now that I think about it, I mean, I was going one year in the show. You're just like, I'm gonna go along with this, and you're just like, nom, like Pac-Man. You just keep going.
you're eating the vegetables.
I don't know. You're just enjoying the show, and it's like I don't care. Okay, you don't really stop to think about it. And now
Yeah.
that you bring that up, it's like, yeah, that is a really lame excuse.
Yeah, one of the.
But
one
I
of my
still love
favorite,
that awkward scene where like it's gotta be.
Oh God!
Yeah,
Where he finds out she's
yeah,
actually a
there's-
girl.
There was a lot of bad touch scenes, weren't they?
not
Not a lot,
not that
but
many.
There were a few.
Yeah.
and one of them was my favorite.
Yeah, that
That was because it was full of emotion. And shit.
there was the one
Oh, I mean,
where,
stuff.
of course, he comes up and Kurisu and Mayuri are in the shower, which very typical.
Okay, yes, that
little-
I didn't care for that.
But-
I did like the animation in the run
Yeah,
sequence.
that's what I was
to
going
it.
to talk about because the animation goes really crazy there for a minute, and it looks awesome.
But
when
it's
it does.
only for a shower shot.
Yeah, well, it leads up to that, but the whole idea was that was after he'd gotten like the second of those threat texts, so he thought something had happened to Mayuri or Kurisu, and he's running back to the lab like, I gotta save her.
Funny thing about that scene, apparently when Funimation uploaded a clip, they titled it, "Yes, there's a shower scene in this show." Or it's like there's fan service, there's a bath scene, whatever in this show or something.
Yeah, I have to say this show wasn't too bad with fan service though. Like you said, there were a few of those weird, groping scenes. Or there's the one where Kurisu, after Kurisu comes out of the rain, her shirt's all wet and stuff. But really, there are only a couple times I can think of where there was blatantly like fan servicey. Most of the rest of the time, it's just focusing on the plot or the comedy. And you brought up the Ruka's a dude, in episode, I think that was episode 2, which was really funny. One of my favorite little interactions is where Okabe is talking with the street vendor guy, trying to find the badge for Suzuha, and he's speaking like really bad English/Japanese, like combined.
Hey, mister.
Yeah, that.
I am mad scientist. It's so cool.
Well, that's what Okabe's saying, but remember what the other guy says back? He's like also talking really broken English.
Yeah, it's like, I don't remember what he said.
And then, like in the last episode, he screams classic lines like, "It's a motel!"
Oh, you're talking about the OVA episode 25.
The OVA episode thing. I also love how it's like, he's like, didn't he say like, "I am terrorist,
Yeah.
conquer and invade," or something like that? And they even did that in the English version too.
You're talking about when he's talking to the TSA people?
Actually, no, they didn't do that in the English version. Yeah, when they're talking to the TSA when they're coming into the country, he's like, "Conquer and invade."
Yeah, that was funny. I actually, that just made me think. If you look closely, when Okabe gets in a taxi to follow the person who he thinks is Suzuha, the street vendor guy we were just talking about, the English guy, is actually driving the car. So apparently he works like in LA as well as in Tokyo or Akihabara or whatever.
Yeah.
But I guess we'll talk about that episode 25 real quick because it's an OVA, that was released after the show. So, but it
Doesn't
is
count.
But it is set after episode 24, and it is probably the true ending, to the show, since it's set afterwards in the Steins Gate world line.
I know that for the episodes Funimation themselves uploaded on YouTube, for some reason the last episode pretty much had that to the trailer to that episode, and they didn't upload that to their channel. So I don't know.
Because they want you to buy the release. I bet.
Yeah. Well, and also I bought this. I bought the second half on iTunes. 25 isn't considered to be part of the entire series. I guess they consider that to be extra, which it sort of is. It was something released, I think, with the DVD Blu-ray release.
Yeah.
They just had that as an extra. But
I didn't care for it.
I don't know. It was funny. There was some great English stuff with Okabe. Getting him to be silly again was kind of nice. Because a lot of the second half is very dark and serious. And there were two important things that happened in that episode as far as plot goes. One was, like I said, where he sees the girl he thinks is Suzuha, chases after her, and it turns out, that's Daru's future wife, basically. Suzuha's mother, because she looks exactly like Suzuha.
Oh, huh.
And it makes the connection that that's who Daru's.
And cluing on that, she even says, like, I had my fortune told that I would marry in 7 years.
Huh.
Yeah.
Never.
So
in my mind.
You don't know how it ever ends up, but it's just like,
it's with how the show goes and everything, it's almost 99% certain that they're going to get together. Because elsewise Suzuha never gets born, and that would be sad, wouldn't it? And then at the end of that episode, we get where Kurisu drives out to get Okabe, but then realizes that she's used up all the gas in her car too, so they're both stranded out in the middle of nowhere, and they sort of have their little heart to heart where, once again, it's revealed Kurisu does have those faint memories from the other world lines, and Okabe asks her, just like he did in episode 22, like, I love you. Do you have the same feelings for me? And she doesn't answer, but she says, like, close your eyes, just like she did in episode 22. So personally, I think it's pretty heavily implied. Like, they get together in the Steins Gate world line, just like they did in the previous world line.
But we'll see what the movie will say about that.
Yes, well, since you brought it up, we might as well talk about the movie. I was watching the trailer for that just a little bit before the podcast. Apparently, it's actually coming out April 20th, which is only in like a few days. Mm-hmm. So comes out in Japan very soon. It seemed from what the trailer looks like, it seems to be basically in this. It's post the Steins Gate world line, but it's in some sort of something changes where nobody knows who Okabe is except for Kurisu. like everyone else, Daru is the founder of the lab in that world. Nobody knows who Okabe is. And so it basically seems like it's going to be Kurisu looking for Okabe and traveling through the timelines just like Okabe did for Mayuri and Kurisu.
So,
which
new adventure.
Yeah,
as long as it's not like the Anohana film, which we have realized is just close to being same exact footage with a few minor scenes.
Exactly. No, this is all like new stuff. There's no question. It doesn't look like it's any sort of like recap sort of movie.
Yeah, so
thing.
I'm looking forward to it because I hate when it's like, let's make a recap movie because it's cheap.
Well, what works for me, like how Madoka did it, they made the 2 recap movies, which, as I understand, actually do have like not a whole lot of new scenes necessarily, but they touch up like almost everything. Like, because apparently, I think Madoka was one of those shows like Bakemonogatari, where when it was released to TV, there was some animation stuff that was missing, and then they updated it later
for the Blu-rays.
Yeah, so I think the movies have all those corrected scenes in there. And the 2 movies, the first 2 Madoka movies are recap movies, and those kind of suck, like you said. But since they said they're going to make the 3rd Madoka movie, which is original and new, that works for me.
Meh.
In the case of Gurren Lagann, which was entirely recap movies, although they do add on quite a bit of new stuff, especially in the 2nd film. So that sort of works. But this Steins Gate movie looks like it's going to be good. I kind of like how it focuses on Kurisu. That'll be a nice change, from dealing with Okabe as a protagonist. The one thing I was just thinking about this, though, is we got to assume, okay, we've got the Steins Gate timeline as we know it at the end of the TV show. Okabe is still, the leader of the lab, and everything's as it is. Everything seems to be hunky-dory. But obviously, something changes over the course of this movie where Okabe doesn't exist. Either, I got to believe it might be something where the attractor field in the Steins Gate timeline, maybe, and that one, the attractor field isn't forcing Kurisu and Mayuri to die, but maybe it forces something to happen to Okabe. But he says, he has a line in there where he seems like he's okay with it. He says, Mayuri is alive, you're alive, that's all that matters. Forget about me. So it seems like Okabe is fine with everyone being forgotten as long as he accomplishes his goal of saving his friends.
True.
But of course, it's going to be one of those things where Kurisu is going to say, well, I feel the same about you, though. I want to save you. What's the point of me living here if you're gone? But the thing that makes me question, though, because everyone else basically seems to not remember Okabe, and Daru is the founder of the lab and all that. But why does Kurisu remember? Because Okabe is supposed to be the only one with the reading Steiner ability to remember things across world lines. So if we're on a different world line and something's changed, she should be like everyone else and remember, not remember Okabe. So why does she remember? I'm sure that's something they'll answer.
I'm just going to wait and see.
Yep. Looks like it's going to be good, though.
All's goods in the... So I have a question, Alex. A theory here. You know how we always talk about how we felt. We all have different opinions, whatever. I don't know if you would want to implement this into I could have talked about this beforehand, but we're going to talk about it now because
all right.
It's here
On the air.
On the air. So when we're done with a shit series, what if everyone kind of gave their not their number? You would say, I give it a blue out of 10, a blue out of 10, and
so more like a review.
A little bit like a review. I mean,
I don't know. The thing is, I kind of like how we do it now because, usually we'll go around and say, what were your final thoughts on the show? And everyone sort of summarizes their feelings on the show.
Okay, that's still better.
And yeah, personally, because that's a whole thing you can talk about with reviews, whether it's for movies, video games, anime, whatever. Some people are against putting a score to things and basically just say, just read the review, read my thoughts. The number isn't important. Some people don't give numbers. They'll just basically say, I've seen some people say, don't buy it, rent it, or buy it. And they just use those 3 criteria to rank stuff. So there are different ways to do it, but I think just us summarizing our feelings, works out pretty well without needing a number.
Agreed.
Because number, at least for me, I know numbers get to be kind of arbitrary, as vague. I guess it's a 6.5.
This gets an
maybe
8.6.
Yeah, exactly. What's the difference between an 8.5 and an 8.6?
Points are stupid, but whatever. So, yep, okie dokies then.
Okie dokies then. I don't know. Real quick, what did you guys? Something that did sort of struck out to me in I think it's episode 23 where Suzuha shows up and is talking about World War III and how 5.7 billion people are going to die, if Okabe doesn't go back and help her. And at first he refuses. He's like, I've done all this work to get to this world line. There's no way I'm going with you, even if I don't care about 5.7 billion people.
Yeah, so he turns into Shinji for a while.
Well, not as bad as Shinji. Let's be frank here. And then even when she says, saving the timeline involves saving Kurisu, even then he's basically saying, like, the only reason I'm going back is to save Kurisu. I don't give a damn about the 5.7 billion people in the future. Which, is on the one hand understandable because we've seen all this stuff he's gone through. Like, he's a broken shell of a man at that point. He's lost his lover, to the flows of time, and he's gone through all this crap to save Mayuri, it's understandable why you wouldn't want to change that timeline again. But at the same time, when you're talking about the deaths of 5.7 billion people, you'd think that might motivate a person.
Motivation.
I don't know. What, did that bother you guys at all, or did you just let it sort of slide over?
I figure it was a story thing. I just let it flow and see where it was going from there.
Flowing.
We
were trying to let it flow. Mm-hmm. Today's episode is brought to you by Flowing Water.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I will say I did quite like the bit in episode 22 where Kurisu and Okabe finally confess their love to each other and they're kissing, and Kurisu's talking about how like the theory of relativity is so romantic, because it's talking about how you perceive time based on perspective and all that.
Quote that on your Facebook.
I did quote that on my Facebook because I don't know, that was a moment. It was a cutesy moment. Like I said, I quite like the Kurisu.
So you
Okabe.
ship the Kurisu. There we have a ship.
A little bit. I guess I was sailing two ships because I would have been okay if
you can't sail two ships.
If Mayuri got with Okabe too. Like I said, I think both had enough development to be believable. So it didn't bother me that they went one way or the other with it. And what did you guys think in those last two episodes? I think it's 23 where Okabe is trying to save Kurisu, fighting off her dad, who turns out to be the professor from episode 1, which was a twist I did not see coming either.
No, and that's one thing I have to credit the show for, the amount of twists that the show brought up. I just wasn't expecting it, and I really, really liked the twists that came up. So
yeah, there were lots of great twists, and I don't know. I also wasn't seeing it coming. Where he's going to stab the dad, and then of course Kurisu knocks him out of the way and gets stabbed by Okabe instead. Which is of course the worst possible thing that Okabe could do, is to kill Kurisu and all that.
Yep.
Which was another one of those sad moments. Like you get in the feels. It did sort of bother me a little bit. Like, I understand Kurisu has these daddy issues and like loves her dad and stuff, but when he's like literally been trying to kill you, you're still gonna like sacrifice yourself to defend him. Like, isn't that a little messed up? Mm-hmm. No comments?
No comments.
Man, I guess I just had these little nitpicky things that I sort of noticed, and you guys are just like, gloss over it, whatever.
I enjoyed the show. Like, I really liked this show, and it was like, didn't really have any problems with it.
I did. I mean, I'm bringing all these points, but they're just basically more things that I noticed. They're not necessarily problems, because honestly, I would rank the show in my top 10. Like, I really was into this show. Definitely one of my favorite moments in the entire series is there at the end of episode 23 when Okabe is. It turns out that staticky message was actually the message from his future self.
Oh yeah, that was great.
Yeah, and you finally get the reveal about you've got to deceive the world in order to save Kurisu and defeat the attractor field lines and go to Steins Gate, the one world line where she's can live basically, and that's where he finally says, like, I am the mad scientist, Hououin Kyouma. He's doing the laugh again. It's like he's back to his old self after so long. That I thought that was just an epic moment because, like, there's that moment too where he like reaches up and grabs the sun and he's talking about like how the world is in the palm of his hand. Like,
Question about the last episode. Any comments on him pulling out the taser?
I did think it was a little strange because afterwards, Kurisu meets him in the street and was like talking about how she was looking for him, thanking him for saving her and all that. But you think certainly looked like she saw him as he was going to tase her. So you think, well, you saved me, but then you tased me, so you're kind of a freak, guy. She sort of seemed to gloss over the whole tasing business. So that bothered me a little bit, but he had to knock her out unconscious so she could lay there in the pool of blood. So I sort of knew he would be doing something like that to her. And I also was sort of anticipating that he'd end up having to stab himself or something to get the blood to be there. Because, of course, the blood dries up in the little lightsaber sword thing that they've got. And then, I don't know, what did you guys think of the way they wrapped it up in episode 24, where he's going around and giving all the badges to all the members, like saying, like, your lab number 5, even though you haven't actually been to the lab yet,
Something he would do. Makes sense with me.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's something the crazy level that Okabe would do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I liked how he put the one badge in the box and was like saying someone will show up in 7 years and they'll be needing this. It's like, oh, it's for Suzuha. And you get Kurisu meeting up with him at the end. I am a little bit torn, I have to admit, because, with how episode 22 is ending, it seemed like it was going in the darker route where, he's basically is forced to choose between these two horrible things: a timeline where Mayuri dies and a timeline where Kurisu dies.
But he gets both in the end because he finds Steins Gate.
Yeah, in the end, he basically gets the happy ending where Kurisu.
But Steins Gate betrays him, according to this film, maybe.
Right, according to the film. Well, and they could have even compromised a bit where he's in the Steins Gate timeline and he's saved her and everything. But Kurisu doesn't know him, because she hasn't met him in that timeline or anything, doesn't know anything about him, and she's off in America, and the two of them are apart, but at least Kurisu's alive. Like, that would have been a more bittersweet ending, more in tone with how the show seemed to be going. And instead they give you the happy ending, where they get together again, which it doesn't feel super out of place, because at the end of the day it is, a happy show, and I liked that they got together, But at the same time, I think it would have been interesting if they'd gone the darker route, not being so happy rainbows at the end.
Could have been, yeah, I see that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I wanted to mention. As I said, about the opening, the ending theme animation-wise wasn't super impressive. It was just the glass sort of floating back into the hourglass, but the song there was quite nice, and there's some nice piano pieces in the soundtrack. Nothing ever really stood out to me that much in the score, but it all supported the show pretty well, it seemed. It was one of those soundtracks where it's good, but it never really pops out at you. It's just sort of there supporting the animation, which isn't necessarily
what it needs to do, as long as it's not jarring, and that's
true. But on the same token, though, I like it when a really good piece of music pops up and it stands out.
I think that would be the opening. The opening really stood out for me.
Well,
I loved the opening.
The opening does do that for me for sure. Yeah. But I hate to keep going back to, but like Madoka Magica, that there's a lot of pieces in that soundtrack that show up time and time again, and they become real motifs for the show in general. And
yeah, you're right. The piano based songs. Now I'm thinking about that. Those are more prevalent in this series. Not super, because I'm having a hard time thinking of it. Sadly, we're watching Persona 4 and J-Con, and sadly that song's coming up, and I'm like, no, that isn't it.
Yeah. There's a piano piece that plays during Kurisu and Okabe's little love confession. Yeah, that's quite nice. I think that might be the main theme of the show. Even I'm not exactly.
I know
sure.
that the ending for episode 23, when it was playing in the credits, was apparently the theme for the visual novel.
Really?
Oh yeah, the near the end, the ending credits were really not wacky, but they started doing their own thing, and I really enjoyed that. But yeah, the episode 23's ending credits were the visual novels,
the song,
which I started playing the visual novel, and a few months ago, and I had to put it down just because everything, and it's like you got to let it sit before going back. But yeah, I'm gonna play the visual novel, and I'm gonna go after Mayuri.
I should probably warn you, Matt, that apparently there's this big plot twist in the visual novel the anime never bothered to actually get to. So you better.
Well, that's good. You've got something to look forward to.
That's something to look forward to.
So be on the lookout for that.
I'll enjoy that then.
All right. So I guess we're near the end here. So overall thoughts on the show. As for myself, like I said, this is definitely one of my all-time favorites. I really got caught up in the characters. I really think Okabe is this, unique character. I haven't really seen quite another character quite like him as a protagonist in any other anime, and all the other characters, are there as sort of the supporting cast, and they're carrying the show through those first 12 episodes as the plot sort of is slowly building up to this, climactic point at the end of episode 12. And, and I'll have to go back and rewatch the first half again, because that's definitely, much more of a lighthearted half, and that's where most of the comedy comes from. Because really, the first half of the show,
I love the perverted jokes that Daru and them.
Yeah, I think one of my favorites is I think Mayuri says the line about like Daru is like the universe constantly expanding. Or something like that.
Yeah, I remember that.
So, the first half of the show would really have you believe it's more of a
slice of
life comedy sort of show.
But I enjoyed it. I still enjoyed what it was.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and for what that is, it's good, with the world line jumping stuff thrown in there to sort of show like, oh, everything's changing as he's jumping timelines, and time traveling isn't always a good thing, which is the case of every time travel show. Time travel never works out.
Time travel is bad, kids. Don't do it.
But
unless you're the Doctor.
But yeah, then we get to episode 12 and beyond, and I agree with you, Matt. Like I do like seeing these characters really get driven like to their limits, and you're really feeling for Okabe. Like after you've seen Mayuri die over and over again, he keeps trying so hard, and then it turns out, if he does that, Karisu is gonna die too. Like in those last few episodes before, Karisu gives him permission basically to go back to the beta world line, you're really feeling his pain. Like he's just in a state of like constant distress because he's like, I thought
there's a reason this anime was really popular last year. I mean, it really did well. Like
it grabs you by your heartstrings and pulls you along and really gets you at certain moments, and then it gets, you get the happy ending at the end, and it's got those epic moments in between and the great plot twists. Mm-hmm. So not my favorite anime ever, but like I said, in my top 10. So I really enjoyed it.
It's my top 10, but it was good. I enjoyed it. I'll come back.
Really. So is your one major complaint then the stuff with Karisu at the end?
A little bit. I just
because it seems like you've basically said like nothing else with the plot really bothered you.
No, like the beginning part, which is like the major thing that people say it's slow and whatever. I enjoyed that. I really enjoyed that. Like I've seen it twice through. So. I mean, I had really no problems. Like, yeah, other than, Okabe conveniently getting back to the time machine after Mayuri would die. I mean, I saw that, but it was just like, okay, I don't care. I'm going to keep watching. What's he going to do next? I was more focused on what's going to happen next. What's going to happen next?
Yeah, it's one of those plot-driven shows.
Yes, and sure. I like those shows. Plot-driven shows are my favorite.
Mm-hmm. Also, something I just remembered, it's called the phone microwave.
Yeah,
that's
the TBA.
Yes, temporary name.
Yeah.
They add on at the end of every time they say it.
Oh, yeah.
Chase, what were your overall opinions?
I say overall, well constructed, but compared to like other anime, it's not really that different. Like people love to say, "Oh, this is completely different from other anime," but I don't know. If you sit down and actually think about it, it kind of it follows the beats of a visual novel, but if you sit down and think about it, it's not really all that different from any other anime that much, really.
Well, you did bring up the point, like, it's very similar to the time-traveling stuff in Madoka or other shows. You've seen shows or movies in other fiction where these time loop things happen, where they keep on trying to repeat something to save someone's life. But my film I'm doing for my film school classes is actually sort of based on that. I just find that to be a really compelling, plot thing, I guess, because like we said, I love this show. I love the way it drives its characters, into desperation through the time loop, and certainly happens in Madoka as well. The Homura, there are other shows that do it too. So there's something about it.
It's an interesting. It's something that can easily pull you in because it brings that factor of what's next. What are you going to do next? It's very.
Yeah,
with these time travel, it has to be very plot driven because you're kind of like partially one of the reasons I like to watch these things. It's like you kind of want to see if they mess up. If they mess up with a detail, then it kind of derails it, and you want to make sure that their writing is solid. And most of the time, it has to be in order for it to.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and especially when it's a time travel show, like Madoka Magica has the time travel element, but it's not a time travel show at all. Whereas Steins Gate is like time travel is the central plot mechanic. And you have to be, like you said, you have to be really well researched and be a really good writer to make it work and not have there be any major plot holes or paradoxes.
It's like, in an opposite sense, it's not exactly. It's like Baccano, how they took that whole main story, but they chopped it up so that it flowed appropriately once you saw the whole thing.
But
I mean, that's not time travel, but you know what I'm saying? Like, you've got to know what you're doing in order to.
But that Baccano is based on a series of light novels, though, so it's technically the original author who had to keep all of the timelines straight.
Yeah,
not
I
so much
don't
the
know if
anime.
I don't think Baccano as the actual book. I don't know if the books are that way.
So non-linear, you mean?
I don't think they're as non-linear.
I'll have to check.
I would like to
That'd be
check that
interesting.
too. Now that I just brought that question up, to be or not to be, that is the answer.
Interesting.
So-
So overall, you liked it, but you don't think it's like the greatest thing ever.
Pretty much, yeah.
All right.
I mean, I have to agree with you, Alex. Like, I know you would put it in your top 10. I really like this series. I would definitely give it an experience world for someone who likes sci-fi and stuff. You know, someone who's not a huge anime person, but they want to give a sci-fi based or, you know, something science fiction-y. I mean, the whole time travel thing is a science fiction thing. Like, if I knew someone who liked Doctor Who, I would probably give this to them just because they might. I mean, okay, that's really generalizing Doctor Who as a story plot line, but the point is, it's got an intriguing plot. It's one of the better things that have come out in a recent while. And, like, I know Baccano is my number 3 anime.
That's right. What was your number 2 again? Bebop.
Bebop. It's
and
Ava, Bebop, and Baccano.
Baccano.
Baccano more of a sense because the other two are from the 90s. And in the 2000s era, Baccano has really been something that I could say, I back that. Yeah, I like that. I ship that.
You shit Baccano.
But the point, yeah, we're getting talking about ships. But the point is, Steins Gate is an example of something done right. Yes, it does appeal to your otaku audience, but I think it also it gets a lot of your anime fandom. It doesn't just, like a Moe show in general, it doesn't, you know, it's not just for the Moe people. And stop giving me that look, Chase. The point is, it does a good job of getting anyone interested in the show and allowing it to be very open to a new audience. You don't have to know all these time theories and stuff.
Yeah,
so
it does seem like well, on the one hand, it does seem like a show that's a bit more westerny, you know, with the plot and stuff. But at the same time, like we said, there are a lot of references to Japanese culture, and like if you don't know Akihabara, you know, you won't get a lot of the stuff like when they're going to the little game shows or the cosplay things or whatever. You know, there's definitely some very Japanese-y things about this show.
there is. So I don't know. It's
I just contradicted what you just said, basically.
I know, basically, and I'm like, oh crap. Point is, it's a good show. I really enjoy it. I would recommend to people who watch anime and don't even watch anime. Yeah, they might understand some of the Japanese things, but you know what? It's solid. It's a solid show, and I think it could do it.
All right, very good. So, for the anime we'll watch for next time, next week actually there's a comedian coming into town, Jim Gaffigan, and myself and a number of other peoples and tech heads are going to see that. So we won't be having a podcast next Thursday. Instead, we're going to use the sort of 2-week time frame to watch a 25-episode show, and so we'll come back the week after next for the final podcast of the school year, since the week after that is finals, and then we'll all be gone forever. And by forever, I mean until August.
Yep.
But, you know, so we got to find a good show to close it out. And I proposed 3 different shows as possible candidates to the various people at Cels. Trigun, Toradora, and the first season of Code Geass, because unfortunately R2 is not legally available online.
For some weird reason.
Yeah.
But, yeah, what you're telling me, Toradora seems to be the...
Yeah. Everyone, Jeremy didn't want to do Code Geass. Kenny really sort of didn't want to do Code Geass, and I know Mark wants to do Toradora eventually.
I'm not a Code Geass fan.
We will do that eventually.
It will happen eventually, and I will watch it then. But
I was actually thinking about that because this is something we'll talk about more on the next podcast. But you know, over the summer break last time, you know, we did FMA and Brotherhood. You know, these long shows that we had the time to watch over the summer. I'm sort of thinking of doing something similar, like a longer show, you know, that we can do over the break. And Code Geass seems like a candidate because full thing's 50 episodes, but over the summer, you've got plenty of time to watch 50 episodes.
This might be insane, but if you guys are looking for an insane show, how about something like, say, Dragon Ball Z or the original Sailor Moon?
I could see us doing like an arc of DBZ or Sailor Moon, but doing the whole show, that's like 200 some episodes. And I personally would not subject myself to that much DBZ or Sailor Moon. That would sort of kill me.
So,
After a point.
We really avoid the big shonen series here.
Yeah, just because we're we're trying to get like as many people on the show to watch them as possible, so we go for these shorter things. I mean, Matt, me, and Mark could certainly sit down and do a One Piece podcast sometime. And
I
talk
think
about
that
all things One
when I
Piece.
catch up, I would like to do that because there'd be people who know One Piece. I mean, yeah, it'd basically be a circle jerk of One Piece fandom, One Piece fandom. Oh yeah.
Yeah, well, of course, only people
disturbed Alex
who
there.
like One Piece are going to watch all the episodes. If you hate it, you're going to stop.
Well, it's like
pretty early.
Tristan said at dinner. He's he doesn't want to do all those episodes. He doesn't want to know all that.
Well, that's why I say if you want to experience One Piece, but you don't want to take the time to read the
read the
anime,
manga. And he's like, I don't have time to read the manga. Well, then you don't have time to do it anyway. So what are you complaining about?
exactly. Like I think I read the manga in the course of about 3 weeks. And that was up to the point there at the Whitebeard arc in the manga. That's where I was at the time I got caught up. So it can be done. It's not too hard. You just gotta, because you can go through a single volume of manga in about 15 minutes or so, and at least I can. It varies obviously from reader to reader. But yeah, so I think we'll ask more of the Shredded Cels people, but it certainly sounds like Toradora is the popular vote for next time, which I'm happy with. I've been wanting to do Toradora for a while. I've watched it after Mark recommended it to me, and it's my favorite, probably my favorite slice of life romantic comedy show I've seen so far. I like the other ones I've seen that are really good. Azumanga Daioh is one of those shows that really doesn't have like much plot or relationships or anything. It's just comedy, and for what it is, it's great. And then you've got Ouran High School Host Club, which is a hilarious show, and it's also got some nice little relationships in it. But I think Toradora does the relationships and the emotions better than Ouran does, although I think Oran's funnier. So that's my personal take on it. But so Toradora sort of leans out in the end as my favorite of those three, which are the main like slice of lifey sort of shows I've seen at least. So we'll be looking forward to doing probably a podcast on Toradora. We might change it up. These are all shows I do want to do eventually. Like I said, Code Geass, definitely want to do. Trigun, we had that at like number 4, I think, on our top 10 TV shows. So we really should talk about it at some point.
It might be next year thing, and we can review the movie and everything with it too.
Oh yeah, because you've got
have
the movie.
Have people over. Well, I have the series and the movie, so have people over and watch that.
But it is online for the TV show.
It is, and that's fine. But if people want to watch, Matt's gonna be. I'll basically say Matt's gonna be watching it these days at this time. You want to make it come over? Sweet, have some popcorn.
Alrighty then. Well, thank you both for being on this episode of Shred Cells, especially you, Chase. I know you're not a regular member, but it's nice to have you back.
Sure, thanks. I'm glad to. If for some reason someone's not here, I'll be glad to come back.
Cool. All right. Thank you very much, Matt, for debating with me on this podcast.
Debation.
For those of you who have enjoyed this,
no
you can email us at techheads@avwproductions.com. You can follow us on Facebook at techheadsou. We've also got a Twitter of the same name. You can subscribe to us on iTunes, give us ratings, reviews. We always love things like that. We've got our blog at techheads.me. YouTube is AVW Media, so check all that out to see all our awesome content. And we will see you guys in 2 weeks when we do our final episode of the semester where we talk about Toradora. All things good.
Hooray!
This product is copyright AVW Productions 2020.